Have you ever looked at your dog and thought, they're fine, they're just being dramatic? They always do that. What if I told you your dog might be stressed and you don't even realize it? Not because you're careless, not because you don't love them, but because dogs don't show stress the way humans expect. They don't always growl. They don't always bark. They don't always run away. And they definitely don't say, "Hey, I'm overwhelmed right now." Instead, they whisper. And when those whispers are ignored, over and over, they can slowly turn into anxiety, reactivity, shutdown behavior, or even aggression. Most out-of-nowhere behavior problems, they weren't sudden. They were subtle signals that were missed. Welcome to the Dog Decode, where we break down what your dog is really telling you. Today, we're decoding 7 subtle stress signals most owners completely overlook. And once you see them, you won't unsee them. Let's start with one that surprises almost everyone. 1. Yawning when they're not tired. If your dog yawns during training, at the vet, when guests arrive, or during a tense interaction, that's often not sleepiness. That's stress. Yawning in dogs is frequently a calming signal. It's something they use to regulate themselves or diffuse tension in a situation. Think of it like a pressure valve releasing steam. You might notice you're correcting them and they yawn. A stranger leans over them and they yawn. Another dog approaches and they yawn. You hug them and they yawn. And because yawning looks harmless, most people ignore it. But context matters. If it's bedtime and they yawn, normal. If it's during social pressure, training, confrontation, or handling, that's information. Dogs use yawning to say, "I'm feeling unsure. This is a lot for me. I'm trying to stay calm." And here's the important part. If the stress continues and the yawning doesn't change the situation, your dog may escalate to stronger signals. Yawning is often one of the earliest whispers. 2. Lip licking when there's no food around. This one is incredibly common and incredibly missed. A quick tongue flick over the nose, sometimes so fast you barely notice it. Lip licking is one of the clearest stress signals in dogs. You'll often see it when someone leans over them, during nail trims, at the groomer, when being scolded around unfamiliar dogs, when a child moves quickly toward them. It's subtle. It lasts half a second, and then it's gone. But in that tiny moment, your dog just communicated discomfort. They're saying, "I'm not fully okay. I need a little space." This feels intense. And when these signals are repeatedly ignored, stress accumulates. Imagine if every time you felt uncomfortable, you quietly cleared your throat, and no one noticed. Eventually, you'd stop whispering. Dogs are no different. Lip licking is often an early-stage signal, long before a growl. 3. Turning their head away. Have you ever tried to take a close-up photo and your dog keeps turning their head? It's not stubbornness. It's communication. Head turning is a way dogs reduce social pressure. It's the polite way of saying, "I need space. This is too intense. I'm trying to avoid conflict." Dogs use eye contact very differently than humans. Direct, prolonged staring can feel threatening in dog language. So when we lean in close, stare, hug, or hover over them, they often respond by turning their head away. Children miss this signal constantly. Adults do too. And when head turning is ignored, when we keep pushing, the dog may escalate. Not because they're aggressive, but because their polite signal didn't work. If you notice your dog consistently turning away during certain interactions, pay attention to what's happening in that moment. That's valuable information. 4. Sudden scratching, sniffing, or random behavior. This one confuses people. Your dog is in a mildly tense situation, and suddenly they start scratching themselves, or intensely sniffing the ground, or shaking off, even though they're dry. It looks random, but it's often displacement behavior. Displacement behaviors happen when a dog feels internal conflict or stress, and they redirect that energy into something unrelated. It's like when humans nervously check their phone in awkward situations, or laugh when they're uncomfortable. The behavior isn't about itchiness, it's about emotional regulation. You might see this during obedience training, when meeting a new dog, when being corrected, during social tension, at the dog park. If the scratching or sniffing only happens in specific contexts, it's likely stress. Dogs don't always explode when stressed. Sometimes they self-soothe. And if we recognize that, we can lower the pressure before it builds. 5. Whale eye, showing the whites of the eyes. This one is extremely important. Whale eye happens when your dog turns their head away but keeps their eyes locked on something, and you see the white crescent around the edge. It often appears around food or toys, when being hugged, when disturbed while resting, when another dog approaches. During tense interactions, whale eye signals discomfort and guarding of personal space. It's often a precursor to growling. And let's talk about growling for a second. Growling is not bad behavior. Growling is communication. It's your dog saying, "I'm uncomfortable, please stop." If we punish growling, we don't remove stress. We remove warning signals. And then the next step might be a bite without warning. Whale eye is your early warning system. If you see it, pause. Create space. Reduce pressure. 6. Freezing or going very still. Most people assume stress looks chaotic. Barking, lunging, hyperactivity. But sometimes stress looks like absolute stillness. A dog that suddenly freezes during petting. A dog that stiffens when a child approaches. A dog that stops moving when another dog gets too close. Stillness can mean, "I'm overwhelmed. I'm unsure what to do. I'm calculating my next move." Freezing is often the moment right before escalation. It's a critical signal. Dogs rarely bite out of nowhere. There is almost always a freeze before it happens. If you notice stiffness, hard posture, closed mouth, tense muscles, give space immediately. Soft body equals relaxed. Stiff body equals stress. That distinction alone can prevent accidents. 7. Excessive panting. When it's not hot, panting after exercise? Completely normal. Panting on a cool day during a mildly stressful event? That can be anxiety. You may notice rapid panting at the vet, panting during thunderstorms, panting during car rides, panting when guests visits, panting during fireworks. Stress activates the fight or flight system. Heart rate increases. Breathing increases. Stress hormones rise. Panting can be a physical release of that activation. If there's no heat and no exercise, ask what's happening emotionally. Dogs experience anticipatory anxiety too. Sometimes the panting starts before the event fully begins. That's not dramatic. That's a nervous system response. Why this matters more than you think: stress is cumulative. One yawn? Probably fine. One lip lick? Not a crisis. But repeated small stressors, without relief, build. Chronic stress can lead to reactivity on walks, fear-based aggression, separation anxiety, digestive problems, overgrooming, behavioral regression, increased sensitivity. Most sudden behavior problems were whispers that weren't decoded. The dog wasn't unpredictable. The signals were subtle. Dogs live in a human world. Loud sounds, unpredictable interactions, constant stimulation. Many cope incredibly well. But coping doesn't always mean comfortable. What you should do. Instead, if you notice these signals, pause. Ask, what just changed? What pressure increased? Who entered the space? What might feel overwhelming right now? Then, create space. Lower intensity. Adjust the environment. Slow things down. Sometimes the solution isn't more obedience. Sometimes it's more awareness. When you respond to stress early, your dog learns, my human listens, and that builds trust. Trust builds confidence. Confidence reduces stress, and that changes everything. Your dog doesn't need you to be perfect. They need you to notice. They are constantly communicating through micro movements, subtle shifts, tiny signals. The more fluent you become in their language, the calmer your home becomes, the safer your interactions become, the deeper your bond becomes. That's what we do here at the Dog Decode. We don't guess, we decode. And once you start seeing these signals, you'll never look at your dog the same way again.